Straight up. Have a temple to be defiled after July. And I've also found a kink there that I believe shows that it can't be defiled July 21st on the 9th of Av. But it also can't wait until the next 9th of Av. It's a dilemma. It truly is. Perhaps it won't be defiled on the 9th of Av, although the other two were. So it's a dilemma. But whether the treaty or the temple comes first, we've always thought the treaty would come first, right? Well, one thing that we do know is that it takes a satanically empowered antichrist to get the treaty signed. And that means Satan's got to be cast down first before the treaty. So you're looking at the treaty between July 27th, when the sixth seal opens at the center blood moon of the triad, and September 10th or 11th, when we are evacuated. It says, when they say peace and safety, sudden destruction. Well, the evacuation is sudden destruction. Okay? So it looks like Satan would be cast down after the sixth seal opens July 27th. Then you would have a satanically empowered antichrist who is then able to confirm the treaty between Israel and the many. Now, I looked up the word confirm, and it means that he shows a valid history of both peoples, both the Palestinians and the Jewish people, in the land as far back as they go. And he's going to show that they both have a history in the land. And so they should both share it. Now, at this time, the Palestinians have always been taught that the Jews don't even have a history there. And that's why they're so angry and selfish and don't want to share. But once this Pope, Antichrist, snake in a dress, is able to sit down with both sides and show the history of the land to both sides, then they will cooperate. There's also a development where the temple is concerned. The temple does not have to be built on the Temple Mount. The temple is going to be built at the city of David. That is by the Gihon spring. And that is where the last two temples were. So there was not one stone left upon another there. And that's where they would build it. And once they discover that, they can, and I think the Pope will probably lay all that out for them too, and let them know where the previous two temples were, and, facilitate. I really don't think the Palestinians would have a problem with it if the Jews built their temple off site of the Temple Mount. It's just a little bit south of the Temple Mount in the city of David. So that can happen at any point. But it looks like there can't be a treaty until we have a satanically empowered Antichrist to get that done. And that's not going to happen until Satan's cast down. Satan is cast down after the sixth seal. Let's look real quick at Revelation chapter 12. And I want to go through some of this with you. Notice in Revelation chapter 12, verses 1 through 3, you have the star alignments of the woman who is Israel and of the dragon, which is the new world order. Okay? And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. The child is the body of Christ, which is the believers. In verse 3, and there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. Now, this is the new world order, okay? But it's also satanically empowered. David Spangler of the UN Planetary Initiative, whoever he is, he had said that nobody enters the New World Order without a Luciferian initiation. Well, I just guess I won't be entering the New World Order. I just can't stomach bowing to that wimp, Lucifer. It's never going to happen. But in verse 4, his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven. The stars are equated with the angels. 1/3 are cast down with Satan. It says, and did cast them to the earth, and the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered. So see, Satan has to be cast down, and he is here when the child is born. Okay, he's waiting for this child to be born so he can devour us. But he's not going to get to do that. As soon as the child is born, that's the evacuation, the woman flees into the wilderness. So it says here, he's wanting to devour her child as soon as it be born. So Satan is here before the evacuation. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and to his throne. That is the children and the believers. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Now, let me mention something to you here, where all of this is concerned. So this is showing the star alignments that came last September and showed up in the sky, a once in human history alignment. And some say a once in 7,000 year alignment. But it did show up. And that is what is shown in Revelation chapter 12, 1 through 3. And then it shows after that, his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven. Now see, that is a 6th seal event. So we know that the 6th seal is opened less than a year after the star alignment. Okay, because that's the next event. Then Satan is cast down and is awaiting the birth of the child. The child is born, that's the evacuation, caught up to God and his throne. And in verse 6, then Israel has to flee. Now, we back up just a little bit to see what happens after the 6th seal is opened. There's a great earthquake for one. Now, we don't know whether this is just in the Holy Lands or whether it's global. But there's a great earthquake. In verse 7, and there was war in heaven. Now, this is what happens after the 6th seal is open. You have, and we know the very date, hopefully this is the date, the 27th of July, because the next blood moon doesn't fit for the 6th seal. And I'll show you that actually in a moment as well. So if the 6th seal requires a blood moon. It has an accompanying blood moon. And that's giving us timing. We just got past the first blood moon of the triad that straddles this year. Excuse me, at January 31st. So we have passed that one by about almost 6 weeks now. I don't believe that is the war in heaven one, because I don't believe that one was the sixth seal. There was not a great earthquake, for one. For two, you're going to know that something is different by then. You're going to be able to see great things, signs in the sun, moon, and stars. And this war in heaven is going to be taking place above us in space. And it says in verse 7, there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out. So he's cast out after the sixth seal is open. Now, how long before they fall to the earth? I don't know. Because we have one reference of a biblical fight between angels, and that was in the book of Daniel, where there was a 3-week struggle between Gabriel, the messenger angel, and the prince of Persia. And after 3 weeks of fighting, Michael, the general of God's armies, came and took over the battle, so Gabriel could go ahead and go to Daniel and deliver the message. Now, since we don't know how long that war in heaven's going to take, it's interesting, though, we have events that have to fit in that window. So it may end up that he, it could happen early in that 6-week window. It's possible. Or after 3 weeks, like that battle in Daniel showed us. I don't know. But it says there are several things that have to happen between the time he's cast out and the time that we leave. Okay? And the treaty is one of those. The treaty. Now, this treaty will lift this snake pope to Messiah status as he brings peace, returns the Ark of the Covenant, gets the temple rebuilt, all this kind of stuff. And he will reign in Jerusalem for 42 months. That's 3.5 years. Let me get over here and bring you guys up. If you have any questions regarding the timeline, I will be very happy to answer those for you. Let me go on to the slide broadcast here. Okay. Hi, guys. Welcome. So happy you're here. Okay. Now, as we get to our sixth seal, let's go ahead and explain real quick why the last blood moon of the triad that comes January 21st, 2019 can't be the sixth seal. Now, one reason it can't be the sixth seal is because that has to be opened before Satan can be cast down. Now, Satan is cast down before our evacuation. There is, if the blood moon in January 21st, 2019 was the sixth seal, then you have Satan cast down, and you have probably the treaty. And then where's the sudden destruction? That wouldn't come until the Feast of Trumpets, when the evacuation occurs. But if it's this middle center blood moon of the triad that is indicating the sixth seal, then you've got a 6-week window after the sixth seal opens. And during that time, you would have Satan cast down, and you would also have a treaty confirmed. And then the world says peace and safety, and then sudden destruction as the evacuation takes place. Now, there is no time. Well, I don't know. I don't think there's time for it to be next year. I could be wrong. I just do possibilities. I'm not a psychic, okay? Uh, or anything like that. I just do scriptural possibilities. So I can't predict anything for you. I can show you what the evidence says, and we look at possibilities from there, okay? I've considered, could the blood moon that we just saw be the sixth seal? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think the middle one would be the sixth seal. Although, now it says here, you have the woman travailing in birth. So she is near her delivery time when the dragon is cast down. Well, if the dragon is cast down in January 2019, we wouldn't be leaving until September. Also, I mean, I realize that's like, you know, let's see, 21st. It's going on 9 months between that one but see, she's travailing already when the dragon is cast down. It's not like she just gets pregnant when the dragon is cast down, then it takes 9 months for us to leave. That's not the case. So she's travailing in birth, and the dragon is standing before her, ready to devour her child as soon as it's born. So if the center blood moon, or the triad that comes July 27th, is the sixth seal blood moon, if that's when the sixth seal is opened, then you would have war in heaven, and you're going to be able to see things in the sky. You're going to be able to see this war in heaven, okay? And then you have Satan and his 1/3 cast down. Then you have a satanically empowered Antichrist, Stay Puffed, a snake in a dress. Then Pope. And then, as the dragon is waiting to devour the child, the evacuation occurs. But see, if you have Satan cast down, satanically empowered Antichrist able to confirm a treaty between Israel and the many, and then people say peace and safety. All that would come in that 6-week window between July 27th and September 9th. And then we would go either September 10th or September 11th. Now, it's not disputing it, you know, when the word says no man knows the day or the hour, that's talking about the return of the Lord. It's not talking about our evacuation, because I can pinpoint our evacuation, okay, within some reasonable time, even though it is a 2-day feast. The new moon shows up on the 9th. If there's cloud cover, they'll start this feast the 10th, and then we would go on the 11th. But the new moon shows up the 9th. So if they see it, if the priests see it with the naked eye, then they would declare the feast started, and then we would go at sunset in the 1 minute between day and night that is neither, the very next day on September 10th. Now, it's interesting to note, September 10th is Tishrei 1. It is the birthday of the world. It is the first day of the Jewish New Year. And it is also the first day of the new millennium. September 11th would start the first day of the New World Order. So as you can see, it's not the evacuation that we don't know a day for. It's the return of the King. We don't know if he shows up in that 6-week window before the feast, at the start of the feast, at the middle of the feast. We don't know. So it's not the day and hour of the evacuation that we don't know. We do know that, but we just don't know when he's going to show up in the sky. That is what we can't know. But we can know pretty close. We can narrow it down to a little window where, you know, prior to our evacuation, we've got that 6th seal. Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. If you guys have questions, please feel free to ask. We're going over some of this end time stuff because prophecy is kicking into high gear. We're approaching the midpoint very quickly, but I do reiterate, I do not any longer believe that the temple can be standing to be defiled on July 21st on the 9th of Av. But it's possible that defiling of the temple could wait until the 9th of Av in 2019, because that's not when the Jews flee, the remnant. You've got two sets of Jews here, right? When Jesus shows up in the sky, that's when the blindness is lifted from the Jews. It says and Israel has been blinded in part until the fullness of the Gentiles become in. So he takes the children and the Gentiles that are born with the temple of God inside them, and then the Jews who have been blinded are still here. It says in Matthew, let me boogie over here to Matthew 24. It says this. All right, in verse 28, for so wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. The carcass is spiritually dead, but physically alive Israel, the Jews. Okay. Then it says, immediately after the tribulation of those days, that's the first half, shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light. Now you get the same description, and the moon turns to blood in the sixth seal. But it's the same description. It says, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Not the heavens shall be shaken, the powers of the heavens. That's Satan's realm. So those powers are going to be shaken, and he is going to be cast down. In verse 30, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. Now that's Israel, tribes. All the tribes of the earth shall mourn. Now the blindness is lifted when the fullness of the Gentiles become in. So once the evacuation takes place, they're like, oh no, they will recognize that Jesus is their Messiah after all, and they will grieve for him as for a firstborn, because they have been so unjust where he's concerned, and he belongs to them. And so the tribes of the earth are mourning there. And this is before we go. This is as Jesus shows up in the sky. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So that is where he shows up. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. So they are, it is that last trump. That's the sound of the trumpet. It says with the great sound of a trumpet. Now, we go at the last trump, and that's the trumpet. So then we know that Satan is cast down before Jesus shows up in the sky. Now, there are only 1,335 days for the Jews to hang in there after the evacuation. Okay? So you've got, I wrote all this down. Where did I put it? 1,335 days is what the Jews have to hang in there. Now, we know that the very end of the generation is August 17th, 2022, via Daniel's equation. And it's not something that can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. When the Jews and the city of Jerusalem are back together again, that happened in 1967, June. The clock resumed with 56 years of 360 days each. And that is 20,160 days. And if you add that to June 7th, you get August 17th, 2022, and that's when it all has to be wrapped up. So if the Jews have 1,335 days from our evacuation to hang in there, I believe that brings them to May. Let's see. Let me go back over here real quick. Okay. Okay, how many days? Now, if you take, hypothetically, let's say the 10th, okay, of September of this year, we're going to add 1,335 days. We're going to calculate our new date. Now, if you guys want to do this too, it's at timeanddate.com. Okay. You put in your date, you tell it how many days to add, and it does it for you. Okay. So the result there is Saturday, May 7th, 2022. Now, that is before August 2022, so that's a possibility. Okay. So if you take from our evacuation and you add the 1,335 days from Daniel 12, it means that it's possible for the New Jerusalem to descend May 7th, 2022. Now, we're also looking at possibilities for mid-March 2022. And I don't think I have one later than this one. But if you went from the very end date, August 17th, 2022, and you backed up 1,335 days, that's December 21st, 2018. So the Jews' 1,335 days starts this year one way or another, doesn't it? Starts this year. Now, the Jews are protected for 1,260 days. Now, their 1,260 would wrap up on this May 7th, 2022, if that's when the New Jerusalem descends. It's one of our possibilities anyway. We're getting right in there close to August 2022 when the very end of the generation appears, but we can't go beyond that date. So everything has to fit in between now and then. And that is possible, but no matter how you slice it, it all comes down this year. All prophetic roads lead to 2018. Now, the next question is Damascus going to go up while we're still here? It's possible. It is possible. Okay? It is extremely possible that it can happen that way. But there is no way you're going to have a standing temple to be defiled this coming 9th of Av, especially if your treaty can't be signed until that 6-week window between the 6th seal and our evacuation. So we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here, where you're going to have, see, the blindness is lifted when he shows up in the sky for the 1/3 remnant. They flee into the wilderness. They're airlifted out on airplanes this time. Okay? Now, I think the scripture says, let those who are in Judea flee into the mountains. That happened in 70 AD, but I think it's still valid now in our time. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away.